Yo, what's going on everybody? Anxiety Offline, back again today for a quick video. As you already know, I have my own website, anxietyoffline.com, where I sell a whole array of concrete obstacles and supplies, including these really awesome bricked up ledges that you see here. This is one of my newest pieces. I'll have more of them in stock very, very soon. Either way, keep an eye out on anxietyoffline.com. I also got t-shirts dropping tomorrow. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about the holy grail of fingerboards, kind of the OG of fingerboards, the OG of consumer fingerboards that is, and that is going to be Tech Deck. So, long story short, way back in the day, there really was not an abundance of fingerboard brands like there is now. Nowadays, you have all kinds of different brands making wooden fingerboards and even plastic fingerboards, which is really crazy. But back in the day, there was really like Tech Deck and then Berlin wood, and then maybe if you knew somebody in their garage making them or whatever, that was really like about it. So what people used to do back in the day is take their old school 26mm Tech Decks like I have here, and they would use heat. As you can see, this one's pretty burnt. I did not know what I was doing. I was probably 11, 12 years old. And you would use heat to kind of melt the kicks, and then you could kind of raise them, make them higher or lower. And this one, I think I was trying to make into like a snow skate or something like that. So as you can see, I made the kicks like very, very steep. I don't really even know how usable this was, but that's kind of an example there. So since I got back into fingerboard, that's been something I've been really wanting to try, and I did it on this deck this week that you see here, this flip deck. This is a mellow Tech deck, and all I did is I melted the kick that you see here, the nose, and I just raised it a little bit, not very much, maybe 5 or 10 degrees, so I just made the nose a little bit steeper. And then what I also did, which is a little bit maybe more noticeable, is I shaved down the nose and tail quite a bit, probably about like a 1/4 inch off the nose and the tail. And I was doing some experiments trying to figure out kind of what shape I liked best, and if I could dial this in to kind of make it kind of something that I liked even more. And I was really surprised. Whoa, is the first thing I said when I did kickflip on here for the first time. Oh my goodness. Dude, this thing feels so good now. What the heck? This thing feels crazy actually. Oh my goodness. Wow, okay, I gotta make an edit with it, ASAP. It flips perfectly, like really crazy. It's actually like hard to put it down. The wheelbase, even though it's the same, the shorter kicks and the raised nose feels absolutely perfect. It feels really similar now to, like shape-wise, to my balcony, and then they're actually almost the same length now, which this is my favorite deck right now. So the fact that it kind of feels like that is a really good thing. Huge shout out to Hassling and Thrasher for these trucks from Teak, and then Pipsqueak for these wheels. This thing is crazy. Once I finished it up, I was like, all right, I got to do another one. So I had this limited edition, rare, whatever one on my wall, so I went and grabbed this one. I messed around with this one. I think I messed around with it a little bit too much. I feel like the nose is a little bit too short, but I went ahead and made the tail even shorter, so they're kind of like equal size now. And it does function pretty good. It feels very technical, but it's still like, I don't know, it didn't feel perfect. So I figured I'd try one more time. And I grabbed the Tech Deck that I use. I keep it like in my rotation. I use it really, really often. I grabbed this one, and this one came out pretty close to perfect. I think if I could go back, maybe I would add just a little bit more to the nose, but either way, I know now I like a bigger nose than tail. I like my finger to kind of hang off the edge a little bit. So that was the kind of cool thing about this process, is like I could kind of, figure, okay, I want my finger to hang off a little bit more off the edge. I'm gonna sand off a little bit more and then see how it feels, and you kind of dial it in that way. And this one does feel perfect. I was really surprised yesterday. I was doing tricks all around my house, like in weird spots, weird angles, and it had like no problem. I was doing heel flips off like super high tables and things like that. I was just like really, really surprised. So I definitely highly recommend this process. It's super fun, kind of personalizes your board, makes it more kind of personal to you, more unique in general, and it's just kind of a fun hobby thing to do. So it's super fun just turning a cheap $3 toy into something that feels like so premium and just performs so well. Just super, super blown away by how this Tech Deck feels and functions after these slight upgrades. And it was way easier than I thought as well, too. So I put off doing this for so long, so I was like, oh, it's gonna be super hard. I don't wanna mess it up or whatever like that. But once I got down to it, it was actually super, super easy. I was very surprised. So you should definitely try this out. And I'm gonna drop all the steps in this next part here. Alright, so the first step here is pretty much you want to use like a lighter or a blowtorch. I used it in this video to apply some heat to the nose of your deck. Not too much heat, just enough to like kind of melt it, kind of make it pliable. Once it's pliable, you want to use a straight edge. I use just one of my ledges. You can use any kind of strong squared edge, whether it's concrete, wood, whatever. Have something on hand. I use one of my ledges as a straight edge. Once I applied the adequate amount of heat, I got everything square underneath the straight edge, underneath the ledge or whatever, and I kind of bent the deck up a little bit, and I could feel the the pliability. I could feel the deck kind of moving, and I knew it was kind of bending into place. And then I double checked that by putting it flush with a stock tech deck, and then I could see my kicks were a little bit higher than the stock one that I was looking at. Here's a totally stock one right here. And I'm gonna go too much higher than that because then it will be not like the others. But there we go. So one thing I'm realizing with this process is you just gotta kind of go slow and do a little bit at a time. Because if you do too much, then you could kind of overdo it and mess things up. But there we go, definitely getting more comfortable with this process. But there is kind of how much I like the change to be, which is very, very slight, not much, maybe like 5-10 degrees at the very most. So I think for this one, I'm gonna use my TP Decks Plain Jane as kind of the guide, because it's a little bit wider and it just is like, you can just see a little bit of the nose and a little bit of the tail. That's really all I want to take off. So I'm gonna try and do like make some lines there, some guidelines, so I can use that as my shape. I don't want to take off too much. I just want to take off a little bit. I really just want to take off a little bit of the nose and a little bit of the tail. I'm actually kind of going to use a combination of the both of them to make the guidelines. So I want to mention real quick, after I got my guidelines scribed into the deck, which I just used the back of like a razor blade to just kind of roughly scribe in the lines kind of where I wanted to sand. I took it outside and just used a cinder block. You can really use any kind of rough concrete to kind of just start sanding away at the edges. You want to do it as kind of round and as careful as possible, and you want to just start grinding away all that excess you don't need. And it's gonna be a 1/4 inch on each side. It's kind of a lot, but just go slow, take your time, and just trust in the process and it will definitely work out. As you get closer to your guidelines, you wanna slow down sanding, kind of pay more careful attention to your edges and things like that. And then you probably wanna have some type of fine sandpaper, or even better yet, a sanding sponge, or even better yet, both on hand. Because what I was doing is, I was getting it roughly in shape with the rough concrete cinder block. Then I would take some fine sandpaper to it to kind of smooth everything out, get a better look at it. And then once I had it perfect, I brought it inside and I just rubbed all the edges against the sanding sponge. And the sanding sponge really seemed to turn them back into like that perfect kind of factory smooth look again. Now from there, it's super easy. All you gotta do is set it up. And after I got mine set up, I realized I wanted to shorten the tail a little bit. It was really no big deal. I took it outside, sand with the grip tape on it and everything, and just sanded down another little bit. Peeled my grip tape up, kind of fixed the edges, put it back down, sanded off the extra, and good to go. And here it is right here. You can really barely even tell. So super, super fun. Highly recommend it. You guys definitely got to try this out. This is definitely an essential thing you got to try if you're into tech decks, if you're into fingerboarding. It's just super fun. I've kind of like, it's so weird in my head. I'm kind of equating it to like a magic wand or something. I don't know. It just feels so, it just feels like now more of a creation of mine versus just something I picked up in the store and kind of put together a certain way. Now it kind of feels more personal to me and my style and how I like to fingerboard. All right, and that does bring us to the end of yet another video. So I stand by everything I said. These decks are both like some of my absolute favorites now. The past couple of days, I've not been able to put either of them down. I'm still trying to figure out which one I like more between the two, but I did establish I do like a bigger nose and a smaller tail, so I'm definitely gonna keep that in mind when I go to revisit this in the future. And I gotta say, I really do like the indestructibility and the weight of these polycarbonate, aka plastic decks. I just love the fact that I can throw it in my pocket or my bag and not worry about it, but at the same time it still shreds and feels really good, just like a pro fingerboard. And I gotta say, for such a cheap overall setup, I've never been able to land so many back-to-back tricks. I was doing kick flips, heel flips, tray flips, impossible, just all in single lines back and forth. It's just crazy how good this thing feels. I definitely see tech decks themselves, the brand, as more of a hobby thing now, something you can kind of take, improve upon to kind of make better. I want to experiment with their different shapes and kind of see how I can improve on them and see if I can find that perfect feeling fingerboard. So I will say, if you do try this, make sure you have the right tools. Definitely get those sanding sponges, because the sanding sponges did a really good job of just bringing these sanded edges totally back to like a factory finish. And I'm really still blown away just how good these things look. If you look at them just at a glance, or if you look at them really good, you honestly cannot even tell they've been sanded down and like modified by hand. It's really crazy. So that is really about it for today. Really appreciate you watching this much longer video. If you stuck around this long, please leave a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment, drop the word Flame Boy down in the comments, because he's on, my favorite decks here. So don't forget, I have my own website, anxiettyoffline.com, where I sell a whole array of concrete obstacles and supplies for fingerboarding, including t-shirts, which just dropped today, so definitely check those out. I'll see you again next week for the next video. And don't forget, Boards and Brews is coming up on June 15th. So if you're in the Southeast Michigan area, you should definitely come on out to that. It's going to be super fun. I have a whole backlog of fingerboard content, and I drop new stuff every single week. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'll see you again here next week. Thanks for watching. Peace.